As the Federal Reserve continually claims the American economy is strong and the labor market is tight, Americans feel invalidated. Their lived experience is far from it. This raises a pressing question to our collective consciousness. Is the economy collapsing? Do the people in power know it, or are they blind to it? In an era where financial stability feels like a distant dream, understanding the underlying causes and potential consequences of this economic upheaval is more critical than ever. Today, we will unravel the complexities of the current economic landscape, exploring the factors driving this crisis and what it means for individuals and businesses alike. Buckle up as we navigate through the stormy sea of our turbulent economy. To kick things off, I wanted to take a look at a recent TikTok that is going viral and news articles associated with it, and after we can kind of react and understand it a little better. But before we get into it, I'm Seth. This is Acquired Salary, the best living through career mastery. If you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. I would greatly appreciate if you like the video and subscribe to this channel, because it is support like this that helps us to grow Acquired Salary's reach and continue to give you free tools, information, and perspectives you need to build the life and career you want. With that, let's get into this viral TikTok showing how bad inflation is.
I feel like I'm gonna be sick. I just looked through my Walmart history and I found this Walmart order from 2 years ago for the whole month worth of groceries. 45 items cost $126. A whole month of groceries just for me, basically. But I did notice this reorder all button, and I wanted to see how much it would cost now. Now, this order of 45 items for 1 month would have cost $414. That is 4 times more. How the fuck? How? What?
Okay, so we can see, according to this video, the cost of groceries has over tripled. Although this is anecdotal evidence, it's hard not to feel like it's dead on. So how does this compare to what the government's reporting, specifically the Federal Reserve, in their CPI reports? Well, by taking a look at the Federal Reserve's data, over the past 4 years, we should have seen something like a total of 22% inflation, not over 300 plus. Well, no wonder people call us CPI reports CPI. But this still leaves us with a few unanswered questions, such as what's the main problem? What are we doing to solve it? And those sorts of things. I think it's clear that the main problem is that individuals are struggling to afford anything at this point in time. But this further raises the question of, okay, who's to blame and what's really causing the problem? Unfortunately, there's no one person or corporation to blame. But I think this is where we can take a lesson from Jeff Bezos to help us answer the outstanding questions and identify the root causes. So if we take a look to Jeff Bezos, he's the leader of Amazon, or was the leader of Amazon, and still plays an important role at Amazon. Obviously, he's very well attuned to process improvement, and we can check out how he approaches things and then apply that to this situation.
Speaking of happiness bias, data collection, and anecdotes, you have to. How's that for transition? You have to tell me the story of the call you made, the customer service call you made to demonstrate a point about wait times.
Yeah, this is very early in the history of Amazon,
Yes.
and we were going over a weekly business review and a set of documents. And I have a saying, which is when the data and the anecdotes disagree, the anecdotes are usually right. And it doesn't mean you just slavishly go follow the anecdotes. Then it means you go examine the data, because and it's usually not that the data is being miscollected. It's usually that you're not measuring the right thing. And so, if you have a bunch of customers complaining about something, and at the same time, your metrics look like they shouldn't be complaining, you should doubt the metrics. And an early example of this was we had metrics that showed that our customers were waiting, I think, less than, 60 seconds. When they called a 1-800 number to get phone customer service, the wait time was supposed to be less than 60 seconds. But we had a lot of complaints that it was longer than that. And anecdotally, it seemed longer than that. I would call customer service myself. And so one day we're in a meeting, we're going through the WBR and the weekly business review, and we get to this metric in the deck. And the guy who leads customer service is defending the metric. And I said, okay, let's call. I picked up the phone and I dialed the 1-800 number and called customer service, and we just waited in silence for
What did it turn out to be? Like
Oh, it
4
was
minutes?
really long, more than 10 minutes, I think.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it was many minutes, and so it dramatically
Yeah.
made the point that something was wrong with the data collection. We weren't measuring the right thing, and that set off a whole chain of events where we started measuring it right. And that's an example, by the way, of truth telling. Is like that's an uncomfortable thing to do,
Yeah.
but you have to seek truth even when it's uncomfortable, and you have to get people's attention, and they have to buy into it, and they have to get energized around really fixing things.
So that speaks to the obsession with the customer experience. So one of the defining aspects of your approach to Amazon is just being obsessed with making customers happy.
Okay, so it's pretty clear that truth telling, making sure you're measuring the right data, is kind of important, and that's been a major contributing factor to why Amazon is so successful. Okay, so following in the steps of Jeff, we can see there's plenty of anecdotal evidence that the economy is in shambles and people are struggling. This makes it obvious that the measures with which the government uses to assess inflation is inaccurate. This is furthered by the fact that the politicians and the wealthy elites are disconnected from the problem. If we take a look at the Post-Millennial article, they say this video came out perfectly timed because just a few days before, Janet Yellen, who's got a net worth of $20 million, claimed that there was no sticker shock. Well, this is probably because she hasn't done any of the grocery shopping for herself in a while. Or even if she does do her own grocery shopping, it's like a drop in the bucket. It's not something that's going to be majorly significant to her, so she's not going to be shocked by the stickers. And I think this kind of also checks out with the older generations having a lack of object permanence. This is kind of seen throughout kind of management overall and the push for return to office, because if they don't see a problem or if they don't see something happening, then it pretty much doesn't exist to them. So this, in combination with all the perverse incentives in the government and politics, essentially saying, things need to look good for the government and politicians in order for them to, tout that as they go on their campaign trail. Well, it's obvious at this point the system's set up to measure things in the most advantageous way possible for the politicians, but I think the American people, especially the younger generations, are starting to wake up to this and be like, yeah, I don't care what the government says or what the reports are saying. My lived experience is very different from that. And so if we're waking up to this, I would say the right solution and tactical application would be, making decisions on who you vote for and what you do and what policies you support by your lived experience. And eventually, over time, this will kind of get integrated into how the politicians act. So rather than relying on government data, they'll rely on the actual lived experience of their constituents. With that said, outside of blaming politicians, a lot of people would like to blame corporations. However, we can't just paint every corporation the same. So checking the premise of corporate greed as one of the underlying causes for the problem of affordability crisis and inflation being rampant, we can take a look at the profit margins of companies. So the TikTok was for Walmart specifically. Well, taking a look at Walmart's profit margins, they haven't seen a crazy dramatic change in margins. So we can't blame Walmart for the corporate greed, but every item sold at Walmart comes from a different company, so we cannot rule out corporate greed entirely. We have to take a look farther upstream, because corporate greed and shrinkflation are partially to blame for the inflation at this point. So, for example, I vividly remember when Procter & Gamble or Crest changed their toothpaste tube size without decreasing the price after they had already raised the prices. So this is essentially double dipping on the end consumer cost. And this is reflected in Procter & Gamble's profit margins, which saw a significant increase in 2020 as well as 2021. Although it has started to come back down, I don't want to get too far into the weeds or fallen down a rabbit hole, but in general, if you want to determine if corporate greed is a contributing factor to why you can't afford certain things you used to afford back in the day, go ahead and take a look at the profit margins of the company over the past couple of years. So at this point, I think it's clear that we have to redefine the problem, or at least revamp how we measure inflation. It's only then that we'd be be able to see the biggest contributing factors to inflation. And once we're actually able to identify the root causes of the problem, we would be able to consider feasible solutions, the most feasible ones being the highest leverage opportunities, otherwise known as the most impact for the least amount of effort. I say this because the problem is very nuanced, and the current approach of trying to tamp down inflation through high interest rates is working, but not in the most optimal way, because some companies are still posting record-breaking profits, yet still laying off employees. Anyways, that's all I've got for today. What do you think? Please share your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you've made it this far into the video, you may as well like the episode and subscribe to this channel so you do not miss out on future videos to help you master your career. While you're at it, consider checking out my video on why the job market sucks right now, where again, we show the disconnect between government data and anecdotal experience. Last but not least, if you like my thought process and want to learn more about how to apply it to your career so you can get a promotion or a raise, join the Acquired Salary community using the first link in the description below. There we can schedule a consultation to go over the highest leverage opportunities for you so you can get ahead in spite of inflation. Until next time, thank you.